All right. Welcome, Jose.
Hello. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. So, all right, getting started into this, I like to kick these off just by asking people, tell me a little bit about yourself. What have you studied and learned so far? Are you working in visual effects? Do you want to work in visual effects? Or where do you want to work when you start
hmm
working? All that kind of stuff. And how can I best be of service of you in class today?
Yeah. Right now, I'm studying a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Game Design Development
Okay.
um, at University of Wisconsin Stout. I want to be a VFX artist, but I'm also enjoy being very involved with the very difficult problem solving, sometimes technical art side of things for animation.
Mm-hmm.
I like seeing how it all comes into gameplay. I like solving those problems, or just obstacles, not necessarily problems. Yeah. So currently in my school, VFX tends to be that people put at the end. So I've been pushing people to involve VFX a little more in the beginning, but I do tend to be put into the rigging part sometimes. So that's why myself, I've been studying visual effects on my own. I've been using Unreal since I was in 11th grade, so that's been like 4 years of Unreal,
Nice.
I guess. Yeah. And um, I was for a while. I was like searching. I was like, okay, well, because I know I want to make games. So at first, I was like, all right, do I want to be a programmer or artist? I was like, okay, artist. And then I started school, and I still somehow ended up learning a good amount of programming, even though I was in an art program.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still searching like what I wanted to do in the games industry. And then eventually, sometime last year, I was like, all right, I'm going to buckle down in VFX. This is super fun.
Cool.
Because that's always the part that always stands out to me in like any animation, any games, like visual effects and the animation together. It's just the animation side of things is what I like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's rad.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great breakdown. So how much longer do you have in school again?
I'm in my junior year, so I have this semester. Hopefully, it doesn't end up being all online, but
Oh,
and
yeah.
and then I have next year's semester, and that's when we work on our senior game for a whole year.
Have you
So I'm
been
a junior right now.
have you been looking for any internships this summer?
Yeah, I applied to the one at Riot Games. I applied to BioWare. I applied to what the Spider-Man game, Spider-Man.
Oh, Insomniac?
Insomniac. How did I forget that? Yeah, Insomniac. I applied to a bunch. I think I'm still waiting back from BioWare and Insomniac. I didn't get any of the other ones,
Okay.
but I was looking at my resume. I was looking at my portfolio. I'm like, I'm very critical of it because I know I'm going to do so much better, and like the next year is going to be so much better.
Yeah.
But like I knew that right now at this point, maybe it probably isn't good enough. So I'm hoping next year it should. I know it'll be at least for an internship.
That's kind of
But
my
for now, I haven't got
sense.
it.
That's kind of my sense. Just like high view from looking at your stuff. I guess this is a good segue to like bring it up on the screen here. Looking at your stuff as an overview, I think you have all the parts, but I'm not seeing it all come together in a single piece.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think you definitely are on a good track, and it's clear that you're putting in plenty of time and effort into this, that your trajectory is good. You just need to keep going on the trajectory that you're on.
Yeah, and right now in my current classes, I always I'm known in my program for twisting the project towards something I like, and so now I'm in an animation production class, but I convinced them to allow me to do it in a game engine. So it's a real time animation in a game engine, and it's like super action based. So I just get to do a bunch of effects. It's gonna be great.
You're paying them. So
yeah,
that is
true.
not
That's
selfish for you to
Yeah.
customize your schooling experience for yourself.
Yeah. So there's like a lot of things in the works right now. I know they're gonna look really great on my portfolio. Plus, like after once my break started, I was like, I was getting started the semester. So I was like, after that solar effects I did, right next to the explosion.
Yeah, this one.
I was able to do the rest of the course, but I'm going to be able to keep going at it. Because I was like, for a bit, I was like, God, I just want to keep going at it because it was actually really fun to like go through the courses, even through the stuff I might have known. You always said something I didn't know, which was super helpful.
Cool.
like some tiny information.
Yeah, I'm glad I can help. I mean, that's the key, right? Is we all miss a lot of things. And so the class is just an attempt to put as many things as we can in as short of time as we can to get it in there. Okay, so I think that's a great segue. We can just dive right into feedback times, if that's cool for you.
All right.
So on this, the number one thing I'm going to tell you is you need more tessellation on your sphere. Because the fact that I can see these hard edges is just killing me. It's just killing me. I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I see it now, yeah.
Seeing the low poly. So that's number one, is getting the sphere nice and smooth. So that
I think it's because when I used the default sphere like in Unreal, right? It was like, oh, it looks fine when it's small, but then when it's bigger, you see it less. Yeah,
you see all those hard edges. All right, so that's part of it. The other part would be, I don't know if there's a way with the render sorting to get this part of the line to sort behind better. You might just have to be more opaque with this part, because the fact that I can see this line is kind of, I don't know that I like it.
So I can change the sorting order, because originally you couldn't see it, but then I thought like if this was a game, you would sort of want to see the radius of the effect.
Oh, that's true. Thinking like a developer. I like it. Okay, so yeah, that's fair enough. I think for the gathering in energy, let's see. So this is solar devastation. So yeah, you're trying to show like orbiting things coming in. I feel like these tendrils, they're not quite giving me the interest that I'm hoping for. Maybe it's that I wish they felt fiery, or that I felt like they were like collapsing planets into the sun, or that they had some kind of theme.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Or that they had some kind of theme to them that was like selling me the burning fiery energy, but instead it's almost like they're ripples on a very calm pool, but they're glowing. So they kind of look like streams of liquid coming in, but it's in a very hot, fiery context. And so I think the theming is a mismatch there of like, how can you get this sort of windy, wispy, watery thing to become something that is more on theme with like solar destruction? Yeah. Also, the big thing growing, like the sun or like the explosion, whatever it is, I think that could use a little more interest in its material. So right now it's got this big empty red area. You could animate some of this red glowiness, or have some like licks of flame coming up along the base of the sphere, or something to help it feel like it's not just a glowing sphere.
Yeah,
it's like, it feels very static for how center of attention it is.
Yeah, that add the line width as well that you talked about that makes it look more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. I think the color is pretty cool, how you've got like the dark red in the center. That's kind of cool. Maybe.
So.
Oh, go ahead.
So the material I have on that it sort of filters the color of the scene there and reverses it and then multiplies it red. So I was thinking like maybe because it's so big, you wouldn't be able to see inside if you got caught. It might be like blinding the player too much, which might be a gameplay thing. So I was like going back and forth whether, because I had that cool invert effect, but it does just look like a flat color sometimes. Because it was like I was like going in my head between gameplay and then, because I felt like if that sphere, like I guess I didn't know where the balance would be to make it that visibility.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. Like I can speak for sort of what we look for in League of Legends. Like probably if this is a League of Legends effect, you're gonna want the sphere to be. You're going to want to get rid of this burning halo around the whole top of it. And you're going to want to tone down how opaque it is in the middle and make it more of like just kind of like faint up here at the top, but you're right, like allowing just mostly in here to be visible, but then you can put the fieriness down along the
Yeah.
edges.
Yeah.
That would be specific to League, though. Like some games, it might not matter. So it really depends on who your audience is, what you're going to do there. Also, I think for League of Legends, we probably wouldn't have a wind up go quite this long or quite this bright. Like, because that's super bright and super powerful. It's like brighter and more powerful than any ultimate that we have in our game. And so it's going to just be the wrong color key or wrong value range and contrast range for any spell in League of Legends. So if you're going for clarity, you've gone a few notches too far already. But if you're going for just like, whoa, that was a super cool, intense, awesome effect, then you can lean into that and actually go for games that want that kind of thing in more of a cinematic sequence or something of that nature. So
I think part of the reason why it came out that bright was because I was going through your tutorials, and then you mentioned something I didn't know, which was that if you make the RGB higher than 1, it activates the bloom, and that just like blew my mind. I was like, "Here's all the bloom," and now that I look at it, it's like way too much.
It does look like you just found the bloom, and you're like, "Yay, this is so fun!"
Yeah, it doesn't. But it doesn't look that great anymore after that.
It's definitely very far for that. So, I mean, just kind of for any effect that you do, keep in mind the constraints that you want to work within. If this is a cinematic thing, actually, it probably needs to go much further. If it's a cinematic thing, like you're going to want chunks of rock coming up from the ground and like swirling and orbiting up higher, and like, you know, maybe birds caught in it or something, like things just like getting
that'd be hilarious,
and spiraling into this catastrophic event. And, you know, don't worry about the AoE. Like maybe even get rid of the AoE ring if it's just cinematic, right? Like just bring it all in and make it feel like super fleshed out, add some more details and touches that are going to really make it sing. And like throw caution to the wind with noise levels or whatever. If this is like a Final Fantasy cutscene, like for when you cast a spell, right? Then go ham for that thing. But if you're applying for a job, you know, crafting spells for World of Warcraft or for League of Legends, then yeah, clarity is important, right? Like the AoE is important, being able to see things through it is important. All those things are important. So just like know your goal and your audience and then tweak it accordingly. So which way do you want to take it?
With this one?
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm not used to the air here.
It's okay.
Let me turn off the fan 1 second. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So I think this one would have been more of a gameplay effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would have gone more for clarity, but also the silliness, like the part where you mentioned with the birds flying in. I thought it actually sounds amazing. And I think, and what you said with the halo up the top of the sphere not being there, I agree with that. Yeah, I think it does sort of distract, makes you look up instead of the radius. Now that you mentioned it, yeah. Yeah, basically, I agree with everything you said.
Cool.
I'd say, yeah.
So yeah, you have some ideas on what to do there. Could just look at your game effects reel in general. I know that was in here as well. We can skip over the part with it. Let's see.
Yeah, that one actually has the out of date solar effects, the solar explosion.
Got it. Yeah, so the gathering energy in here, it's green and purple. What was the goal with that? Because I'm not feeling the green and purple, I will say.
So that was actually like one of my first doing a relatively big-ish gameplay effect, and I was trying to make it unique. So in my brain, I was like, my brain was just thinking tropical fireball, I guess. So that's why I went for like greens and purples.
Mhm.
But then when I realized once you shoot the fireball, I sort of, yeah, like it's if I'm not sure how well it blends right now, but
Mm.
that was one of my first ones. But I put it in my reel because I felt like at least it's because I did the systems for the animation and everything there, so I felt like that would add a little variety. But and I did
Yeah.
like the fire effect in the distance.
I think it's a great setup for a demo reel to have like these two hands here, and then you're like casting abilities off of them. I
Mhm.
think I think it'd be very worthwhile to go back in, and since this is one of your earlier effects, and now you've done some of the painting exercises, to
Mhm.
do paint overs and to explore color and to look at what you can do to get this to be more cohesive. Because right
Mhm.
now, like the green and the purple, they're not melding together at all. And a lot of it is because there's like two different emitters that have more or less the same shapes, and the only difference is the color. And so they're both trying to do the same thing, but just with different colors, and that never goes well because it's like, wait, why do they look identical but they're colored differently? That makes me think of like confetti, where it's like there's all these little bits. The only difference between the little bits is just color, but they're made of the same material. And so why is there magical confetti, right?
Mhm.
And so think about, well, maybe the green is the color of the smoke and the purple is the color of the flame, or
Mm.
or vice versa. The purple is the smoke and the green is the flame. Or how's that going to look? Okay, so then you start painting it out and you start finding, oh, well, the green is too saturated or the purple is too saturated. I need to adjust it, right? And so you start toning one or the other down, make them less saturated, make it darker, make it whatever, and just tweak around all of that just to see very quickly with a couple of brush strokes, like very sort of even abstract, just like blobs of color. Like, do I like how this green looks with that purple? And you can work on it on top of these two hands that you have that are there in your shot and just paint it up, right? You're like, okay,
Mhm.
so I want it to feel like fire. It's really amazing how much more you can accomplish just painting through versus trying to go straight into animate it. You end up taking a lot of time to tweak the particle colors and things. So that would be my note for color. I think it's a cool idea to do something with green and purple. And we see a lot of like evil, dark magic, or you could maybe even do tropical magic. That could be a really fun thing, right? But
Mhm.
like, what's your color palette? Maybe it's not green or purple. Maybe it's cyan and orange, or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, play around there. There's a lot you can do with the color exploration. I think too, just like the shapes that you've got, they're very rudimentary and could use some love. So like these kinds of shapes work better like with the fire itself. Like I don't, is that the same material on the fire itself?
Um, yeah, those are all the same fire essentially.
Yeah,
The same
so
texture.
yeah, that texture, that it's kind of like a dissolving thing, right? Like it's like these little cards that dissolve or something.
Yeah, they yeah.
See,
It's like I created the fire effect. It's actually not a flip book. It's a UV distortion of
oh,
one
okay.
one fire. But yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, UV distortion or dissolve, or whatever you choose to do. It looks fine when you have like lots of cards on top of each other and they're kind of like rotating and distorting or dissolving or doing whatever.
Mhm.
When they're kind of just in a mass, it kind of feels like fire. But
Mhm.
when you start making them travel really quickly, side to side, they fall apart really quickly. Because fire, when you move it really quickly, it actually stretches and becomes strandy and stringy.
Yeah.
And so you're going to need a separate texture slash material for when it's sliding quickly in and sucking in, to make it feel like flicks of flame. And you can see this if you look up like stock footage of a torch getting flung around, like when they wave the torch, or like fire dancers, they spin it on that stick
Yeah.
and it becomes long and strandy very quickly. So yeah, you're going to find that a different material, a different texture shape is going to feel a lot better as that's moving along. The same with the missile. It'll feel less like popcorn bits getting left behind
Mhm.
and be more successful there. So
Probably would have performance too. Yeah.
yeah. So with this here, this swoosh coming in, I can clearly make out the different particles and the swoosh being its own like kind of mesh gathering in on the hand, and that's
Mhm.
never a good sign. So if I can see
Okay.
how the magic is being done, a magician never reveals their secrets, right? So
Okay. Yeah.
so you don't want to reveal how it's being done with the particles. Typically like frosty shapes, because I see like this is kind of like frost on glass kind of texture,
Yeah.
right? Typically they work better, especially with this much detail, if they more or less stay still. Because you think about it, like frost on glass is like frozen to the glass, and it doesn't
Mhm.
like slide around. If it's again, if you think of the use case for the material, like if it's frost blowing around, it's usually a stringier shape, like a wispier, windier shape, right?
Mhm.
And so you've got the wispiness going on with the mesh, and kudos to you for that. But it's fighting with the sort of staticness of, I went too far back, the like how static it is on these. And I just I see these cards kind of shifting around. And even when it's like stationary on the hand, it's still weird that they're moving, even though they're moving less. It feels a little better, but the fact that they're moving at all just feels weird to me, because like frost to me, like it like freezes and then it fades away in place, right? Like it freezes to whatever it's on and then it goes away. Like if anything, the frost would be like on the hand, like it's getting an icy hand or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The material, like that same texture, would look great like
On the hands.
on like traveling over a hand and staying in place versus sliding around in the air. It
Mhm.
just doesn't quite feel right. If you want it to feel like icy energy, you're going to need another element that's not this wispy thing. But I don't know. I think like a similar motion to what you have, but done with a different material / texture that's more geared toward wispiness, but maybe is more
Mhm.
subtle, could be more successful. The swooshy mesh itself, I feel like it's maybe a little monochromatic and like has like a large solid area of color. Like it just feels, it doesn't necessarily feel icy. It's more of just like gray. You could put a little more blue into parts of it, like touches of blue throughout it. Like this kind of cyany sort of blue that you have up here, it's perfect for ice. And because it doesn't have any of that, it just feels like wind. Like maybe not even wind, because it's gray. It's like someone smoking a cigarette. You know, it's kind of like a sickly gray wind right now versus like a cool icy gray.
Mhm.
Any questions so far? Any thoughts?
No, I agree with that. Actually, when I was first trying to go for it, I was trying to make that more like water instead of frost, and it just ended up being more frost.
Mm,
I made that texture and Substance Designer, but yeah, it didn't end up selling that much as water, as much as the water one you see there, maybe. that, but I didn't end up using. I
the
probably should have used that one for the water instead. Yeah.
yeah, the texture painting skills as well are really going to come in handy too.
Oh yeah.
Substance Designer. So essentially, the challenge that you're up against is, you know, you're working on effects that are very like there's only a couple of emitters, like they're very simple. And anytime your emitter is going to be just like a couple of things like that, relying on more detail oriented textures that are sort of procedurally generated is, they're going to call a lot of attention to themselves. Typically,
Mm-hmm.
when textures like that are used, it's in a symphony of multiple elements, because you're working with something that feels much more believable, much more grounded, much more realistic when you're working in a program like Substance. And so just keep in mind, like, okay, well, then the material on the hand is going to be a realistic material. And then the ice that comes over that should feel realistic and like very believable and grounded to that hand. And then the wispiness in the air needs to feel very believable. And then like whatever like ice cube is forming in the hand needs to feel like a thing you could reach out and grab, right? And so each of these is going to have their own asset, their own textures, and so forth. And it's going to call for more and more emitters. Whereas I feel like if you go with and this isn't always true, but if you go with more of a handcrafted feel in your textures, where they're like either hand painted or just like a very straight up like a flip book or like a toon shader kind of thing, then you can often get by with just maybe one texture to sort of sell what's happening in a more boiled down cartoony sort of way, right? Like,
Yeah, they have bigger
this
shapes.
just kind of feels icy. So that's obviously not always true. Sometimes you do both, where it's hand painted and there's a lot of emitters. But I very rarely see it work well where it's a very realistic texture, or like a procedural, highly detailed texture, also trying to carry the entire effect just by itself. So kudos to you for like trying to keep it optimized, but also keep in mind the limits of a highly optimized, simplified particle. Plus, you're emitting so many of it that it ends up not being optimized anyway, right? Like,
yeah, no, there's way too much there.
yeah. So there's a lot of cards overlaid on top with translucency, and so that's gonna cause trouble for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you may as
On the
well
left.
do more with less, right? Like show more of it with a more simplified deal.
They're not. They aren't even GPU particles, which just costs even more.
Right. Because they'd have a much simpler material if they were GPU. Okay. So yeah, and then on the explosion, I think the timing on the explosion could use some things, right? Like again, you're really trying to rely so heavily on just the one texture. I see some other stuff in there, but it's just getting lost because that one texture is so dominant.
I think part of the reason was because that was for a game jam, so I was under, I guess, time constraints.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Then it is what it is. I mean, this is just your chance to go back now and say, hey, it's in my demo reel. I'm using this to apply. They're going to assume that I had all the time I wanted to do it, and that
that's true.
It looks, and that I think it looks great, right? Like the caveats of Game Jam won't really work when they're reviewing it.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So continuing along. Any other questions so far?
No, this has been great because most of the feedback I've been asking for is like from other instructors and teachers, but very rarely. I don't think they've had any student who wants to be a VFX artist at my school. I'm like the only one. So it's been a little so the feedback I got was to put that one first ones in my portfolio because it seemed like one of the more impressive. But this deep nitty-gritty detail that you would usually get in like a course dedicated to is like super helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, I would say just a lot of these, I mean, it's all about that refinement, and jazzing it up. Like, looking at this, like, you've got 2-3 different textures, and the way they move is kind of just, I'm not feeling it. Like, it's not like, ooh, the way that moves is like so cool and it's such an interesting sigil, right? Like, find ways to do like dissolves on these ley lines, or just have them like appear in an interesting way and like sort of shimmer and glow in different ways. Incorporate some color depth with it, right? So right now it's all very much monochromatic, but maybe it's got some yellows in there or some cyan somewhere, that kind of thing. Integrate these sparks so that they're coming from spots that feel meaningful, or maybe the entire outer ridge, like Doctor Strange, right? Like
that was the inspiration, actually.
Yeah. So then make the emitter go all the way around and give it some purpose, and take the time to get it to scale with the portal so that it's not doing this thing where it's kind of not quite
I
hooked
see.
up
Yeah.
correctly. It's kind of a little offset. Like all those touches and refinements, like professionals notice. They really do notice. Oh, like did they put the refinement in? Is it ready to ship? Can I trust this
Yeah.
person that when I bring them on, that they can take it to finish and really polish it out and make it feel really high end, right?
Yeah. And these last 2 years here at school have really just felt like big refinement. Like, all right, I have this stuff. It's not amazing, but like I just need to refine everything. And like
Mhm.
slowly, my stuff has slowly been getting better.
That's the key.
The reel definitely needs an update for sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like taking that time once to just take it over the line all the way there to where it needs to be is going to pay big dividends later where you can like you've done the hard work and then the next time you get there quicker because
Mhm.
you've put in the work to get there. This black hole, there's lots of really interesting black holes and portals out there that you can reference on Pinterest and things, and they're going to give you great ideas on how to make this amazing, like things that you could add with distortion and like motion around the edge to make it more erratic and the motion of the things swirling into it and all this stuff. Because right now it's like I got it to work, and you can tell that it's like a black hole kind of thing, imploding on itself, but it's not super exciting to watch, and there's nothing specifically unique about it that I'm really interested in learning more about, right?
Well, where did you work with Elena on that new going back to what's it called? The spawn in League of Legends for that new skin. Do you know Elena Baczynski
Oh
on
yeah,
the right?
Lana.
Yeah, yeah.
She worked
She's
on the Lux skin.
yeah. Were you one of the ones involved on the FX?
I wasn't. No.
Ah, they had really cool effects for that.
I worked on
Yeah.
the black hole map for Darkstar. Myself and Ali Sorensen worked on that and collaborated. So that
Okay.
that was a fun black hole that we collaborated on. We borrowed a lot from other things like Mordekaiser and like when Mordekaiser uses his ultimate, it's like down there beneath when you go into the other realm, there's like a giant dark star or black hole down beneath it. And then there was another black hole as well. I think it might have been, was it Thresh or Oriana? It was one of those. It was something like that. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of black holes in League of Legends. Turns out.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're all a little different.
They make sense with the mechanics.
Yeah. So I want to wrap up. We'll just kind of like have these up as you. I think you've done a great job. Your painting skills are coming along really nicely. Learning from the class and how to do these different things, and this is really cool to see. Like, this is what I mean when I say you're getting the skills to tie back into your particle system work. These are obviously huge. They show huge promise for what you could be able to do if you could bring some of this into 3D. But
that last one is something more recent. It's really small. The one at the that little guy. Yeah, it's actually something a little more recent. You might enjoy it since I know your background is 2D animation. Yeah. So that's do you see the frame where he has double eyes?
Yeah, where they're like stretching.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, so I've been doing some research for the animation production for VFX, but for like to extend the exaggeration of the movement, not just be this thing that's tacked on. Not tacked on, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that, yeah. So.
I mean, really good timing. Feels great. If you can take this kind of sensibility into your effects, because that was another thing that we didn't have a lot of time to go into, but timing is definitely another area that working on your effects. I mean, most every effects artist has this struggle where just getting it to work takes all this time, and then getting the timing to work with all those pieces is a whole other step. So first, I think just work on your composition skills, and then we can talk later about timing and how to get you there with that. So
yeah, when I like make a new effect, for example, or update some of the old ones, can I just like send them over in the VFX Apprentice to you or the forums?
Yeah, I mean that's what the community's for inside the class, is for us to give you notes. hopefully I'm not the only one giving feedback. I noticed lately others are starting to chime in on stuff too, and I definitely want to encourage more of that. It's great when everyone contributes. You feel more engaged, and it keeps everyone more motivated as well to keep going.
Yeah, I was usually every project, and then I would comment on another person's. Although sadly, for like the last 2 months, I wasn't able to do anything. Haven't been able to do anything, but I'm going to start again now that I have this long break.
Cool. Yeah, we all have a long break.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
So,
yeah, stay healthy for sure. Stay healthy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm probably not going to be leaving my room. So more of you vexed. Yeah.
Hey, cool, man. Well, best of luck to you, and thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you later.
Catch you later. Thanks.
All right, bye.